Ade ade lo yada, ade ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Bezrat Hashem, we're in the moments entering into Moshe Rabbeinu's Yurtzeit on Sunday, which will be exactly 1 week before we start celebrating Purim. We all know Ade lo yada, this level of reaching that we can let go of all the barriers that we put on ourselves, all the costumes we put on ourselves, all the things that we live in, and actually break through and get not to the world of action, but to the world of want. What do we want from ourselves? What do we want in this year that we've been experiencing the war? What do we want to do? And how do we actually ask ourselves that what we want is sometimes more important than what we do? That's all a introduction for this Parsha, for Parsha Pekudei. And the thing about Parsha Pekudei is that we want to ask ourselves a simple question: how does someone succeed in becoming great? And before we get to the answer, I think we have to remind ourselves that no matter what, we cannot forget the last pasuk of Sefer Shemot, one of the last psukim. One of the last psukim says, "V'lo yachol Moshe lavo elo el moed, ki shachan alav he'anan." So obviously everyone's sitting now in their kitchen listening to this when they're cooking for Shabbat is asking, why are you singing this pasuk to the tune of Eicha? But if we listen to the pasuk, it's the most painful pasuk in the whole Torah. Am Yisrael put in all their money, all their effort, all their time, all their sweat equity into the Mishkan for one goal, for Hashem to reveal Himself. And the last pasuk of Sefer Shemot, V'lo yachol, Moshe can't go in. So this is just an intro to the question of how do we succeed, to first remind ourselves no matter how much we work, the outcome is not in our hands. We did it all. We prepared everything, and still V'lo yachol Moshe. Reminding ourselves that we do not control, we can only open the door. And we have to realize that that's number one when we want to succeed. We have to be able to try and be willing to keep trying even when we don't see success. That's the end of Sefer Shemot. But to just bring in after that introduction, there is some advice that we can see throughout the building of the Mishkan that enables us to recognize how can we succeed. And the answer is an organized priority list. Throughout the entire time of the Mishkan, everything was organized. Zahav was always before Kesef, and Kesef was always before Nechoshet. Inside was always before outside. They first tell us about the Aron, then they tell us about the menorah, about the Shulchan, then the menorah, and only then they'll get into the Oel and into the Mizbeach. Everything is extremely organized by priorities. The first priority is inside before outside. Zahav is a priority because it's more effort than Nechoshet. Nechoshet is not as expensive. And what we'll see throughout all the journey is that if anyone ever wants to succeed, they need one thing, which is called a priority list. If our family is not our number one priority, then we are not aware of Judaism. If Eretz Yisrael is not our number one priority, where people will put it into the right paradigm of how they want to put it in, then we will lose out on what it means to build a Mishkan. Eretz Yisrael cannot be seen as a secondary. And I just want to end off with a beautiful sikha from Rav Tamir Granot that everyone should listen to on YouTube. Rav Tamir Granot, the father of Itamar, who was killed 5 months ago on Lamed Tishrei by the Hezbollah. He sat there and spoke about this idea of priorities. This war is not a secondary thing, it's a priority. Fighting for Am Yisrael is not a secondary thing, it's a mitzvah d'oraita. The idea of looking at these things and not having a clear priority list is where everything falls apart. Shevet Achim Gam Yachad is a priority. Ahavat Chinam is a priority. These things are not secondary. They are essential. And they're what's leading us into Purim. That this idea of the Mishkan is that we have a priority list. Mordechai said the number one priority is, I will not bow down. I am not someone who doesn't have an identity. I have an identity. Only then can you stand up to Haman. Only then can you stand up to Achashverosh. Only then can you ask yourself, how will we come back to Eretz Yisrael? And my bracha for all of us is that, yes, number one, we realize, V'lo yachol, as much as we might do all the right things, trying is the only thing that we can do. We will not define success. But the best thing to do by trying is to have a clear priority list. What is number one? What is number two? And what is number three? Shabbat Shalom.